Hello, good evening. Welcome to Hucknall in Nottingham for this week's British Hockey Chat. Uh, I am going to say right from the top, strap yourselves in because it could be a long one tonight. Had an awful lot of questions today, and I'm sure it'll be no surprise to many of you that most of them are Panthers related. Although we have got some other topics as well, so do hang around. But it is mainly going to be a Panthers one tonight. As ever, if I could ask you to tweet this link out and share it so we can get as many people in here to join the discussion, that would be very, very much appreciated. If you could do that, that would be great. But we're going to pretty much crack straight on tonight because there's an awful lot to get through. Good evening, Andrew. As ever, if you want to join in the discussion or comment on anything, just pop it in the chat box as people are doing, as Andrew and Craig have already done, just to the side there on the right hand side as you look at your screen. I'm not I'm not going to ask for questions as much because, like I say, there is a lot to get through. I've had 24 questions sent to me today, so whether we get through them all, we shall see. We shall see. But feel free to comment on the right-hand side. Good evening, Jenny. Thank you for your question yesterday. And good evening, Rogue Pest. It has been a quiet week, hasn't it? No issues whatsoever, as I'm sure the next 45 minutes to probably an hour will reveal. Okay, let's crack on. What I've done is I've tried to section the questions up as much as I can. So I've tried to keep the same topics together, even if there's been like a few questions on a similar topic, just to try and get the pace going a bit quicker. Evening, Chris. I'm sure you're still very happy after yesterday, and who wouldn't be if you was a Belfast fan? Okay, let's start. And the first question comes from Ashley, who's at Ashley941300 on Twitter. And he says, who would replace Wallace if he was to go? And along the similar lines, Andy Tring, who's a regular contributor here, he asks, with the string of results over the last month or so, do you or the viewers think that it is time for a change and Tim Wallace should go? But if he does, who would take his place and what could they do to improve results? From the top, no, I don't think Tim Wallace should go. Is my first answer to that. I think Tim Wallace overall is a very good coach. I just don't think he has the tools at his disposal this season to be able to do a decent job. Is the first comment I want to make on that. And I don't think it would matter who would replace him if anyone did, and if he was let's say, replaced before the end of the season. I think you could probably get a trio of Scotty Bowman, Mike Babcock, and Barry Trotz into the Panthers at the minute, and I don't think they'd be able to do much with the team. As I've said, I think the team has got a lot of heart and a lot of effort, but it hasn't got a lot of quality, and I think that's the major problem. And we will come on to the reasons for that later on from the other questions that we've been asked. But for me, no, Tim Wallace shouldn't go. And if he was replaced, I don't think there's anyone out there who could probably be doing a better job. What's that? Blaming Tim Wallace for not doing loads with the budget he's been given is like blaming a post box for your mail being late. A great analogy there, Anthony, and one I can totally agree with. Just say good evening to Joe, new here. Glad to have you along. Thank you for joining us. And also Lee managed to catch one live. Good for you. So the next couple of questions with regards cutting imports. So David Viles asked, was cutting 2 imports due to cost or form? Either way, it's left us short. And Tom, who's at TomJ1994, says, we released 2 players and since haven't bought anyone in, other teams don't seem to struggle bringing players in. So why do we? Great question. So yes, we cut 2 imports. So Simon Suaranta and Tommy Jokinen, who has gone to Fife. From Guillaume Doucet's interview last week or earlier this week. I can't exactly remember now. More on that later as well. It seems that they were both cut just prior to Panthers going into COVID protocols, but then it obviously couldn't be announced until they came out of COVID protocols. There was seemingly a player lined up to come in, which fell through, so that has left us short. In the meantime, other teams have brought players in. Cardiff, most notably, bringing in a player who scored twice yesterday or the other day, I think. So, yeah, it does seem that other teams seem to be bringing players in quite easily. To go to David's question, which was cutting 2 imports due to cost or form? Originally, I think to form, and Doucette makes that quite clear in his interview. Excuse me. However, as time has gone on and no replacements have been made for either, and if they were cut when we went into COVID protocol, which was a week before Christmas, we're now looking to have been playing short in the region of getting on for 3 weeks now. So, as time goes on, I'm beginning to think it could be a cost issue. And I can't imagine that either, with their background and their pedigree within the Finnish Liga, I can't imagine either was on a cheap wage, let's put it that way. So as time has gone on, I'm beginning to think now it's maybe a cost thing rather form initially, and I think that's why there was cut. But I think the fact there's no replacement is now probably a cost thing. And if that is the case, and I'm only surmising here, and it's only my opinion, but that's not on. And that is going to leave us even weaker because you're expecting the players that are left, of which we've got 12 fit imports at the minute. It leaves them at risk of injury, and we're playing an awful lot of games in a very short space of time. Obviously, the game against Dundee tomorrow has been cancelled because of COVID, but even so, we're still playing a lot of games in a very short space of time. My webcam's in the way, so I can't just quite see the chat. What's that? Anthony says, similar with Peter today, revealing in the PR, they signed an import, started the paperwork, and the country went into lockdown, so they couldn't sort visas. Right. Yeah. I think from what I've heard with this import the Panthers had, he was actually here in Nottingham, but for some reason it all fell through. I don't know how true that is, and I don't know the story behind that. But it's very. It seems very strange that we had a player here, he's not signed, and since there's been nobody else available to come in. Thoughts on Wallace's man management skills? He said after the Manchester win, it felt like a loss, and then went on to say the team lacked confidence after the Belfast loss. Well, losing is a habit. I imagine that Tim Wallace is probably at his wit's end, and who wouldn't be with the run of form that we've had recently? It's not good. But I can imagine the team are low on confidence. I think it's 1 win in 6 or 7 now. An absolute drubbing by Belfast yesterday. But Belfast are a lot better side than us. A lot better side. So in that regard, it's not surprising that we're losing, and it's not surprising that the team lack confidence. I thought what he said after the Manchester win was a little harsh, if I'm honest, where he said that it felt like a loss, because it was quite a good win, 4-1 up after the second period. Maybe they pushed off the gas a little bit in the third, thinking of the amount of games that were coming up, possibly. But I thought that was a decent win. But I mean, Wallace has probably got high standards, and I can't blame him for that, to be fair. Although I still feel he's not been supported by those above him. And that's the thing. I support Tim Wallace. I support Guy Doucette, but I think Guy Doucette does have questions to answer if he's the guy who's recruiting why he cut 2 players and we've not had replacements come in. So I think that does fall on him. But for me, I don't think any blame lies at Wallace's door whatsoever. Let's have a look. The input was probably in Nottingham watching teams. No, not joining that. Harsh. I believe Matthew Myers cracked his stick on the bench. Is that right, Jenny? I wasn't at the game yesterday because I still have bloody COVID and I'm still testing positive, and it's still annoying because I don't have any symptoms and I still can't hug my wife and child, which is not great. So yeah, it's not. I'm not in the best of moods either, and Panthers form isn't exactly making it any better either, unfortunately. I get that he's trying to provoke a reaction, but I didn't seem the right way to go about it with the current situation. I think he's probably in a similar situation, Tim Wallace, where he's perhaps running out of ideas a bit because, you've got to make a team that isn't of the best quality competitive, and you can't make players better overnight. It's impossible, especially when you're playing teams the quality of Sheffield and Belfast. So I imagine he's very frustrated. And the other thing that hasn't been considered is a lot of people saying, well, should Tim Wallace be sacked? Well, to be fair, could Tim Wallace actually walk if he feels frustrated? And would anybody blame him? To be perfectly honest, would anybody? I know I certainly wouldn't, because I certainly don't feel that he's being supported at the minute. Anyway, let's crack on. Jay Wacko, who is at Watkinson1981 on Twitter and is a Steelers fan, which will probably become clear when you hear the question. Do you think the budgets are really that much different between Nottingham, Cardiff, Belfast and the Steelers? Is it just bad recruitment from the Panthers? No, I don't. I think the budgets are that different. And I'll say this to anyone, and I'll say this to you as well, Jay Wacko, is if you've got 20 minutes or so spare, have a look on Elite Prospects and look at the bottom where it shows the for each roster the experience they've got in leagues like NHL, KHL, SHL, Liga, Czech, AHL, World Championship experience, all that sort of thing. And it's all totaled up in total games in the roster at the bottom. Check the difference between Cardiff, Belfast, Sheffield and Nottingham. And have a look at Nottingham's, and then try and come back and tell me that you don't think that the teams' budgets are massively different. Because looking at that, and I know it's not 100% that, but if you look at that and look at the experience and pedigree in other teams compared to the Panthers, Sheffield and Cardiff certainly are miles ahead. Belfast aren't. So are Belfast actually overachieving compared to what they've got, which points to excellent recruitment from Adam Keefe, let's be honest. As far as Panthers recruitment, no, it's not been great because there's not a lot of quality, but I do believe that the roster has been assembled due to the budget available, and I don't think the budget is that great. What's that, Chris? I miss days when I worried about Panthers games. It's more enjoyable on the edge of the seat watching a competitive game. Yeah, yesterday's game was not competitive in the slightest, was it? Tommy, my smashes stick twice on the boards in front of the Panthers players after the 6th goal. Yeah, and Matthew, I think Matthew Myers has been great this season. It's been great to have him back, but what we seem to have a lot of players who are third line grinders, and we don't have that much. We have very, very few, if any, X Factor players, maybe a couple, but nothing compared to the 1920 season that got cut short from COVID. There was quality, massive quality throughout that squad, and now there isn't. Opinions on Doherty. I won't go into massive detail, loose screw, but I don't think he's that great. Agents have had Doucette's pants down, but the budgets are similar. Yeah, I would agree with that. These two issues, we've either had a low budget or Guy Doucet's recruitment has been awful. I would go with the former rather than the latter. And I think the way that the crowds are at the minute, I think things that have come out about Aladdin's loans that they have, the fact that Neil Black owns 2 teams, the fact that we're coming out of a pandemic or probably going back into a pandemic, I think that all points towards a lower budget rather than poor recruitment, is my opinion on that. Tony Brown asks, do you think Panthers had any desire to try and win anything this season, or are they just riding out the current situation? I think the players certainly have a desire. There was something that Guy Doucet said in an interview, and I've sort of written it down to quote it, but he says about the players, he says, every one of us, me, Tim, the players, we care and we try hard. And I don't think anyone could argue with that at all. At all. The simple situation is they're just not good enough. There's just not the quality there. And then that points towards whoever sets the budget, which is the owner. So I think there's plenty of desire within the on-ice staff. I just wonder about the desire right at the top. That is where what I would say to that one. Matthew Bostock, who has had a few questions on here before, he says, would you think replacing Kevin Carr with a new netminder might bring confidence to the defence team? Now, from the questions that Matthew's posed before, I know he's not a fan of Kevin Carr, which is absolutely fair enough. I like Kevin Carr. I don't think he's a netminder who can win us a championship, if I'm honest. But I think he's okay. But I don't think he's in the same league as other netminders in the elite league, mainly Tyler Beskorowany or Stojanovic at Sheffield. And maybe even Matt Ginn at Manchester, who I think is another excellent netminder. I don't think he's in that sort of league. If I'm honest, I don't think replacing him would make any difference, because as I suspect, that the budget just isn't there, who are you going to get in? Who are you going to get in to replace him? You need to get someone in who's better. Do you think that anyone else better than Kevin Carr is available at the minute? I'm not so sure, is how I would answer that one, Tony, at this point. Sorry, Matthew, at this point. Let's have a look at the comments. Lee, I think budget is a big issue, but player recruitment has been very poor the last seasons, barring a handful of players. A friend made a point. Other teams with lower budgets played well against us. That's true. That's very true. Rogue Pest, if all the players had the grit and determination of Kelsall, we would be in a good place. Grit and determination is fine. And I think we've got that in abundance, to be honest. I think we've got a lot of grit. I think we've got a lot of effort, just not a lot of quality. And I think that's the thing. And Jordan Kelsey, you're absolutely right. Busts his balls every single shift he's out there. But sometimes it's not all about grit and determination and trying hard. You need that sort of skills and that quality to sometimes unlock them better teams. And we're just not doing that at the minute, and don't even look like doing it. And that's the problem, I think. What's Chris say? If Wallace walked, who would want the job? No backing from above. Fans rightfully angry and no change inside. I wouldn't want it, no. And I don't think many people would. Now, there's obviously some who a coach who's probably looking for a job, who's out of work, will probably jump at it. But it's finding the right person. And it's finding the right coach and a good coach to work under those constraints. That's going to be the difficult thing. Joe Marshall asks, how do you think Kevin Deming is feeling not being able to play and seeing us fall apart? I can imagine he feels pretty terrible, actually, especially getting injured in a totally accidental play in Cardiff. It seems it's a bad injury from people I've spoken to or were telling me that they've seen him recently and he's still hobbling. And So I don't know how long he's going to be out, which is a real shame. And Kevin Domingue is one of those X Factor type players I talked about. He is one of those players who can get on the ice and do something and make something happen. We've really, really missed him since he's been out. And I really hope he does get back at some point in the rest of the season. I really, really do. But I can imagine he's feeling pretty awful, and the squad is really missing him. Jenny Noble, who's on, is having a director of hockey and a head coach really working? Do they have the right contacts to get the best players? Interesting question, Jenny. And I did have a look at the previous team in 2019-20 to relate to your question. To answer it off the top of my head, it should work because I think when it was announced, and I still think now, it was a very progressive move by the Panthers, because this is how a lot of continental teams work, is by having a head coach and a director of hockey. Now, let's say we changed Guy Doucet's title to general manager. Does that really make much of a difference? And because I believe that Guy Doucet does have business qualifications, so would that be actually the right move to make him general manager, but he's overseeing off ice as well as on ice? I don't think it could hurt, is my personal opinion on that. Where you say, do they have the right contacts to get the best players? And this was something I was looking at with the 2019-20 squad, and something that I think leads as evidence as to why we've maybe been given a lower budget this season. You go back to 2019-20, and the initial recruitment probably wasn't all that great, let's be honest. But if you look at the players that Guy Doucet then brought in during that season to replace players that they cut, they were massive upgrades. And I'm thinking Jason Binkley at the end of the season had great pedigree coming in on defense. Jake Hansen scored a lot of points for us. He was brought in mid-season. Ryan Horvat didn't score many points, but was absolutely superb, I thought, for us. Worked hard, made things happen. And finally, Julian Talbot, who was brought in, I think in late September, October, and was quite frankly fantastic for us. Absolutely fantastic. So I think they do have the contacts, because in the past they proved to get really, really good players. And I think, look at the Elite Series as well. We had some really, really good players in that. Austin Cangelosi as a prime example from that. And Domingue and Boyvan, who were brought back for this season, and rightly so, based on their performances in the Elite Series. So I think that they do have the contacts to get the best players. I just don't think they've had the budget to get the best players. And I know I keep saying this, and I'm probably starting to sound like a broken record now, but I do genuinely think that is the problem. What's Tommy saying? Miss Steve Lee massively at the back. In my Matheson has not been his usual level this year. No, I would agree with that, Tommy. And I think anybody who watches this knows I'm a huge fan of Mark Matheson, but he's certainly not been at his very best, which, let's face it, is an incredibly high standard. I don't think anyone can really deny that. And it's a real shame, because I am a big fan of Mark Matheson's. Reese Williams, and this goes to the Guy Doucet interview. Sorry about that, but my webcam is balancing on my iPad, and my iPad isn't the most stable at the minute on its rocker. So if it does rock, I do apologise. He says, thoughts on the Guy Doucet interview last week. It's good to see the club's media addressing the current situation, but for me, he was churning out excuse after excuse. I know Black's investment has been questioned, but Doucet seemed very naive in what he said. For example, he said something along the lines of fans expect us to win every week, followed by suggesting that fans only want toughness because fights are entertaining rather than the fact we are bullied every week. He seems naive to the mess we're in. I went back and watched it again. And first of all, you're right. It's nice to see that we are starting to get a bit more openness, and something that we've asked for in the past and probably not had. And having listened to it again, I've got to be fair. Dan Kerry asked him some difficult questions, and a lot of things from what fans have been saying over the season. So I think a lot of respect is due for that. Um, and like I say, there was certain things that he was saying. Yeah, fans expect us to win every week, but fans do expect them to win every week. There are some fans who think we should win every week. It's not realistic. I don't think we should win every week. I think we should have a roster that competes for everything every season, without a doubt, and that's based on the arena and where it is, and the infrastructure, the attendances we have, albeit they're going down, they're still the second biggest in the league. So on that basis, I think we should always have a budget and a roster that competes in the Elite League every season and competes for every trophy. I think you're right where he says fights are exciting. Yeah. But I think a lot of fans are fed up of us getting bullied every week, and we are. I think the thing that annoyed me from the game on the 27th against Sheffield is where John Armstrong jumps Jordan Kelsall and nobody does anything. And he's like, what? Somebody do something. And that really annoyed me. But I did agree with him when he said about bringing someone in with toughness, but they've got to be able to play as well. And he mentioned Cam Jansen. He says if we had someone like that available to us, and I actually totally and utterly agree with him there, and he was absolutely right. Yes, we do need somebody who is prepared to drop the gloves and is prepared to look after the team, but they also got to be able to contribute to the team as well. Gone are the days where we just had people there to fight. Those days are gone. They are not coming back. But we do need someone there who has that ability to play, but also has that ability to drop gloves. And Cam Jansen was the example he used. Guy Lepin would be another example for me. A quality defenseman, but also took no crap from anybody. And I think if we had someone like Guy Lepin this season, I don't think we'd be getting bullied. And also, I've seen a lot of criticism of Matthew Toussignon. Toussignon is an agitator, and fair play to him. He's prepared to drop the gloves, but it usually ends badly for him, let's be honest. If someone like Lepine was there, or someone in the mould of not an enforcer, but someone who could look after the team, does that then make Toussignon's role far more effective? I think it does. So, yeah. I mean, I watched the interview. I actually thought he was quite open. I think there was some answers that made me think, but actually, I agree with him with what he said about the toughness and getting a player who can play as well. Okay. All right. Next raft of questions, and these are all regarding the ownership. So Phil Cooper, why doesn't Neil Black go? Kev Dilliger Cliff, which is at FCliffKev on Twitter. If not Neil Black, then what? Who? Are there many investors out there looking for a hockey team right now? Panthers massive. Now that the Blacks are the arena operator at Clan, does this make them their primary interest? What would it take for Black to sell? Why are Panthers fans so accepting of a failure of ownership? In football, owners would have been ousted long ago, and in the NHL, jerseys would be thrown. And Dean Oxley, what do you think the main problem at the Panthers currently is? In my opinion, it's an acceptance of failure from the top down, and it's not going to change with the current owner and people in positions of power. That was put to Guy Doucette in his interview about acceptance of failure, and he totally and utterly shot that down and denied it. Is there an acceptance of failure at the top? Probably, because I think the most important thing for the person at the top is making a profit, which isn't a problem in itself. It's just how much emphasis is put on making a profit, and how much of that profit is then reinvested. I think that is the major issue. What Panthers massive says with them being arena operator at Clan, I think Clan maybe is the primary interest, and I think this is maybe where Neil Black will be looking to put his energy, because I think the potential for more profit is there because they now own the arena, and the potential for making the most of that is there for them. In which case, should Black sell? In my opinion, yes. Should he sell us? Yes, I think he should. What would it take for Black to sell? Does he want to sell? Is the main question. Why are Panthers fans so accepting of failure of ownership? Some are, some aren't. I think I've been, for a while now, I've been saying that I think we need new owners, but realistically, Neil Black needs to want to sell, and he needs to want to sell it at a price that's attractive, and somebody needs to come in and buy it who is able to run the club or invest in the club how we want it to be invested in. Those people don't grow on trees, and I think that's the issue. And I know what you're saying about Panthers fans accepting the failure. Football owners would have been out as long ago, and the NHL jerseys would be thrown. Neil Black's not about a lot. He doesn't see the angst and the outpourings of Panthers fans. So, in that respect, why would it bother him? And to be fair, it's not fair to have a go at the people in the office. I saw Dan Kerry was getting some abuse on Twitter. I mean, why? It's not his fault. He's trying to deal with the problems that are being presented with COVID and rearranging fixtures and all that sort of thing. If you are on social media and you are giving abuse to the Panthers office staff or Dan Kerry, then for God's sake, look in the mirror and go outside and give your damn head a wobble. Because you're having a go at totally the wrong person, and it's not fair and it's not acceptable. So don't do it. Is the sorry, getting on my soapbox, but I saw it and it annoyed me. So yeah, and the thing is, Neil Black is never there to have a go at it. If there was protest, do you think he'd be bothered? I mean, let's face it, the last guy who tried to start a supporters trust was banned from the arena. So it's a tough one. I think the only thing that will make Neil Black sit up and take notice is if people stop going. And by the looks of it, people are stopping to going because the attendances are absolutely in free fall. A bank holiday game yesterday against the Belfast Giants, and there was less than 4,000 people in the building. That should be ringing alarm bells. Absolutely ringing alarm bells. Let's have a look at the comments. It works in Belfast. Steve Thornton is head of Hockey Ops and Keith is head coach. Yep, it does work well there. The team are getting a lot of shots on goal. It's just finishing letting them down. Yeah, we do need to score more goals, but we've got many natural goal scorers. Don't think we could ever afford another Cam Jansen type of player again. No, I think you're right, Jenny. Talking of falling attendances, how low do you think it has to go until it starts hurting the owner in the pocket? I imagine it's starting to hurt now because attendances are low. Season ticket holders are the lowest I've known it probably since we moved into the arena, I think. Jansen, Lepine, McGrattan, all quality players as well as tough guys. The type of players dying out now, though, especially in this league. Yeah, I do agree. I see this because I don't know Nottingham. Have Panthers gotten away with being a bit stagnant because the other big teams in the city aren't faring as well, whereas the Panthers mildly succeeded? It's a decent point, but Forest are back on the up. And to be fair, County are getting some really goodwill and some good support in the National League. And I think they've got a really good chance of making it back into the league. So that will give them a boost. County, that is, not Panthers. What is the value of the Panthers? Great question, Josh. How long is a piece of string? I put a tweet out on Twitter last night, whereas could I find a spare 50 million quid down the back of my sofa? Because I think he would want a substantial amount of money to sell the Panthers. I'm talking many millions of pounds. Wonder if Mr. Marinakis at Forest would be interested. I don't think he would be. I mean, he could be asked, I suppose. But what is the value of the Panthers? I mean, essentially, the value of the Panthers is really only the name. The arena is rented. Nothing is really owned, but it's the potential to make profits. And Neil Black in the past has made an awful lot of profit from the Nottingham Panthers. Tony says, is it feasible for a fan buyout and run as a not-for-profit organisation? I don't think it's feasible because I think Neil Black will want too much money. And I think the amount of fans or the amount of rich fans you would need to have that sort of conglomerate is just not realistic. That's the annoying thing. Neil Black, silent all season, every season, pops up at playoff final weekend and disappears again. Nikita says, I went on New Year's Eve and usually the Blaze game is packed. We still made the journey from Coventry. Yeah, a few Blaze fans going along. It was nice of you to go along, even though he was playing Manchester. The New Year's Eve game traditionally is always a sellout or very close to it. I watched the webcast on New Year's Eve, and there was a lot of empty seats in there, which is not good to see. I mean, regardless, I know it's the only way to probably send a message to the owner, but it's still never nice going along and seeing swathes of empty seats. It's just, it's just depressing, frankly. I just don't like it. What's it? Jake Leversuch, goodwill and brand is hard to value. Yes, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. But I do think that if Neil Black wanted to sell the Panthers, it would be a valuation into the many millions of pounds. All right, let's crack on because I've still got loads of questions to go through and it's still been going a while. When Neil Black realises he's spread himself too thin and bins the Panthers in favour of the clan, what hockey team will you start supporting unless Smith buys the Panthers too? I don't think Tony Smith has got the disposable income as well as he's doing with the Steelers to buy the Panthers. I will always support the Panthers. If the Panthers cease to exist, I would still watch hockey. I just wouldn't support another team. It's really that simple. And I could never support another team. Panthers will always be my first love when it comes to ice hockey, and that will never, ever change. Richard Bradley says, does the Panthers organisation really value their fan base beyond its role in keeping the lights on? I'm a fairly new fan, 4 to 5 years, but the interactions between management and fans have always seemed low during that time. I remember one Black Q&A session. Good question. I think there has been some good moves made. For example, where they've asked for suggestions from fans, and there's going to be there's a permanent form on the website, so you can send suggestions to the office. I think is a very, very good move. But with regards talking to the chairman and owner, I totally agree. He does seem to pop up with a Q&A when there's a bit of discourse. So don't be surprised if one is scheduled in the next month or so. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened at all. However, I think with regard to your question, I'm not sure how much the higher part of the organization really values them. And a lot of people say we're just walking cash cows and walking wallets. And to be honest, it's easy to see why people think that. And I'm not talking about the guys in the office. I'm talking about like Neil Black and the people who own the Panthers, because there is very, very little interaction between those people who own the Panthers and the fan base. And there never has been a lot of interaction. But I guess when we was winning things, it's not so bad. Uh, Now there's absolutely nothing at all. This question, I'm not going to be able to spend the time that this question needs. If anybody saw it, this is the one where I said this will take up the whole show whatsoever. It's from my good friend Adam Reddish. He says, "Outline your vision of how the Nottingham Panthers can be a force to be reckoned with in British hockey, rather than a club mocked for its huge potential and perennial failings. Also, why is Neil Black silent and hiding from the fans?" Um, I'll not go into that last part of the question because I think I covered that in Richard's question. But outline my vision, and I've written some things down. Um, because I can't spend the time on that on this question that I would like to. So I'm going to have to sort of I'll go through it very quickly. Um, So first of all, I think there has to be a structure in place where you have, and I think the owner needs to be far more hands-on. Whoever owns the club needs to be far more hands-on. So I think you have an owner, you have a general manager and you have then an off-ice manager and the head coach who report to the general manager. The head coach has to be the most important role in the club, bar none. One of the things that Dave Sims says that I agree with him wholeheartedly is the most important person in any hockey organization has to be the head coach. And I absolutely agree with that 100%. So you have an off-ice manager and the head coach, and then under that you have the head coach, off-ice manager, marketing and ticketing manager, media manager, and then whoever under that. So there has to be a structure in place. That's the first thing. There has to be a link with the Nottingham Junior Club. And if you want a production line of Brits coming through for your organisation, you have to have the links there available. And there has to be better better links with the Nottingham Junior Hockey Club. There is a junior hockey club in your own building. Use them. Get involved with them, because there is a production line of players who are starting at 9 years old who can come all the way through. All the way through. So get time with the juniors. The other thing that you need is time. You can't expect a new owner to come in, change the structure, and expect to be winning titles in that season. There has to be a realistic timeline. You have a 5-year plan. I would put in a target of winning the Elite League title in 5 years. The other things I sort of wrote down is there has to be accountability throughout the organization. Profits have to be invested back in the club. The webcast, which I think is brilliant, that has to stay. The relationship with the fan base has to improve. And also the other thing that I would change, because I've hated it ever since we moved to the arena, is the gold, silver, bronze ticketing structure. One price for an adult ticket, one price for a child ticket, one price for a concessions ticket. And that's it. Because I just think it's wrong to have different price tickets in different parts of the arena, because I don't think there's a bad seat in the place, and I think that should be reflected with all adult tickets, all children's tickets being the same price wherever you sit. So that is the other thing I would do. Sorry for sort of rushing through that, Adam, but it's a big question and it deserves more time, and it's just we're at getting up to 45 minutes already, and we are coming to the end of the Panthers questions. I think there's one more, which is from Kathy Luckock, who says, "I feel playing out of the arena is a millstone around the Panthers' neck, given overheads and the perception of a big team causing issues. Will Panthers ever consider looking to run their own smaller facility in the future?" Quick answer is I can't see it. One, because of cost. Two, because the Nottingham City Council own the arena. So getting planning permission for another arena in the Nottingham City Council area would be incredibly difficult. So you would have to look to move another arena or another rink to the outskirts. One, how big do you make it? Two, do you just have it for ice hockey, or do you consider other events? I think it's too much of a big project and a costly project to ever consider. I had a look back to how much the Cardiff Arena cost. Now, bearing in mind that's only 3,000. I know it's a twin pad facility, and that was built what, 5 years ago now, and that was 17 million quid to build. So to have something decent, say 5,000-6,000 capacity, um, facilities, boxes, all the stuff that you need, I think you're looking at north of 30 million quid. Who's got that sort of money? And the fact that it couldn't actually be built in the Nottingham City boundaries either. So, um, it would be great if it could happen, because then, you are masters of your own destiny. You're probably not paying any rink rent, and you can play on whatever night that you want to. I just think the costs are prohibitive, unfortunately, Kathy. Great question. Okay, that's the Panthers questions out of the way. So for everyone else watching, there are some other questions. Let's see. A quick look at the comments. 4 or 5 million, maybe. I'm guessing you're talking about Panthers value. Tony Wright, empty seats, but is the money being made via the webcast instead? I can imagine there's some money being made via the webcast, because I do know that people aren't coming because of COVID. I mean, look at me. I bought 2 home webcasts over the past week because I've had COVID, in addition to my season tickets. So I'm still pumping money into the club. I'm sure some will call me a fool for doing that, but I wanted to watch the games, and it was the only way I was going to be able to do it. I can't imagine a massive amount is being made from the webcast, if I'm perfectly honest. Harvey, wonder if any rich Canadian businessmen would be interested in buying us like the Cardiff Devil owners. Would be nice. I think you've got to think about the impact of COVID as well. Would there be people willing to invest in a hockey club, considering what has happened over the past 18 months? I think that's something else that has to be thought about. Neil Black was sat in front of us a few weeks ago. Can't remember which game, but he witnessed a poor game. Didn't stay for all 3 periods, mind, unless he went and sat upstairs. Neil, your question, we covered that one earlier, mate. So when we're done, if you go back to and watch it, I covered about the coach and director of hockey in quite detail. Do you think there's much interaction between the owner and the DOH coach? I don't know. I would imagine. I know that he talked to Gary a lot. There was a lot of communication between him and Gary. Whether there's a similar amount of communication between Guy and Neil Black, I honestly don't know. It is the only answer I can give to that question, unfortunately. Greg Crooks asks, should clubs be transparent with fans when it comes to things like budgets? Yes, I think they should. Will they? I doubt it. But I do think it would be good. I mean, at the end of the day, we fans set the budgets because we pay the money that allows them to have a budget. I think it would be good if clubs could be transparent. And this goes for all clubs. And I'm not saying each individual thing, but just say, right, our player budget is X amount this season. There's a wage cap of, I think, 12 or 12,500 a week, which was confirmed by Todd Kelman a few weeks ago. So it would be nice to know what clubs are spending with regard to that wage cap. Now, whether the clubs are economical with the truth regards that, that's the other thing. But in regards to the question you ask, yeah, I think there should be a lot more transparency in the league, and I'm not talking about knowing what individual players are getting paid, but I think something like, well, our entire player budget is X. It would be nice if a team came out with that, if I'm perfectly honest. Ashley at Ashley941300 says, "Who's better, Belfast or Sheffield?" Having seen both teams this season, I would have to say Belfast, but I've seen Belfast twice. I've seen Sheffield, I think, once. So in that regard, you know, I think Sheffield have the ability to be more entertaining and play more entertaining, attacking, attractive hockey. I think Belfast are just far better quality wise, and they showed that last night. Showed that yesterday. They are so good, and that line of Goodwin, Pickenish, and Conway is sensational. Absolutely sensational. Um, I think the only thing that probably goes against Belfast a little bit is I think they have a tendency to get a bit complacent. I think they got a bit complacent yesterday when they got so far ahead. Because I mean, it was 4-2 at the end of the first, and it could have very easily been 4-3 had it not been for a great save by Beska Rawani. And Panthers, I think, hit the pipe work 2 or 3 times in that second period, so could have brought themselves right back into the game. So I think Belfast can switch off or show a bit of complacency when they're far ahead, but purely on what I've seen from both teams myself so far this season, I think Belfast are the better team. But I think it'll be between those two for the Elite League title, without a doubt. Andrew Turnbull, who's a good friend and also from the Northeast, a former Newcastle Vipers fan, but has also supported the Durham Wasps when he started going, and he's now currently watching the Whitley Warriors in EIHL 1. He says, "I have found modern day Elite League feeling soulless. Obviously, looking from an outsider's perspective, a lot of old fans gone, seemingly lower crowds, imports come and go. I mean, they always did, but you get what I mean. Do I have a valid point? It's not as, in some cases, it's not as exciting as it used to be. And I think that is the way that the game has gone. It's certainly become more sanitized. There's certainly less characters within the game than there used to be. I think fighting and the rough stuff being taken out of the game has led to that as well. I think that's pretty obvious, but yeah, it is a bit soulless, and I think arenas have a lot to do with that because arenas can feel pretty soulless. Rinks not so much. As most of you know, I've been commentating on some Manchester games this season, and actually, when I go there, I feel a vibe and I feel a buzz, and it feels a bit like it used to. But I think that's true of a lot of rink teams and a lot of smaller venues. And I just don't think you find that sort of buzz in in the arenas. And I'm talking Sheffield, I'm talking Belfast, I'm certainly talking Nottingham. Um, So yeah, I think it depends on where you go to see it. I mean, I know Turney, you go and watch Whitley a lot. So what's it like there? Because I know they get decent crowds for that level, very decent crowds. Um, so let me know. And what do other people watching think? Do you think it's a bit soulless, especially those who's been going a while? Do you think it is a bit soulless? Okay, the next 3 questions are all around COVID because another Dundee have gone back into COVID protocol. Coventry Blaze have been confirmed in COVID protocol now. So this is still causing problems. Great question from Panthers Banter. He says, "Do you think playoff weekend still goes ahead as normal? What happens if a team enters COVID protocol in the run up to that? Not just a simple case of switching opponents like there has been for many league games over the last month or so." Great question. I think at the moment it still goes ahead as normal until anything else changes. And I think the league will just hope that a team doesn't enter COVID protocol because then what happens? I don't know. And I don't know what the solution would be. And I don't know what the fairest way to deal with that would be. So I think that could just be a case of crossing your fingers and hoping it doesn't happen. But it's a great question, and until you sent it through, it's something I not really thought about because I think we're still deep into the regular season and we're still thinking about the COVID protocols that are happening right now. Looking ahead, it's yeah, it's frightening. And it's frightening that could happen. What it would be, I think it would be an absolute disaster for the Elite League if that happened, because it's not like you could just replace them with another team because that just wouldn't be fair. So yeah, it's a really difficult one. I think the only way to combat that is say a team went into COVID protocol before um, playoff final weekend, then you would have to somehow do it that you have it as a three-team round robin tournament, and whoever finishes top takes the playoff trophy. That's the only way I could see it being done. But over 2 days, that's going to be very difficult. So yeah, what? But a great question. A great question. Richard Evans, who's a Storm fan, says, in your opinion, how badly has the COVID protocol affected teams? Panthers appear to have done badly, whereas Storm don't seem affected too much. What is the COVID protocol? Another $1 million question, Richard. Nobody knows. But again, it's that question of transparency. If the Elite League was a little bit more transparent, please show us what the COVID protocol is. Thank you very much, because I think we all need to see it. As regards to how it affected teams, I mean, Panthers came out of COVID protocol on Christmas Eve and then went straight into playing Steelers on Boxing Day on the 27th. So they'd had very little preparation playing a team who were in form. And I've also played Belfast. I thought Storm were excellent against Panthers on Saturday. From what I saw on the webcast, they played really, really well. But Storm have actually got the best home record in the Elite League. So, it shouldn't be a surprise that teams are going there and losing because it's a very, very difficult building. And the atmosphere in there is cracking when it gets going. So I think Storm, you say, don't seem to have been affected too much, but I don't think you've had as many games as the Panthers because you've had quite a few cancelled as well. But, great win on Saturday night. Final question comes from Ali McNair, who is a Clan fan, and he says, with COVID being COVID, do you think the season will need extending or even cut short? I don't think you can extend it because it runs into the World Championships and also finding an available weekend for playoff weekend if it has to get changed. I think the most likely thing would be it would be cut short or games would be cut off. But I think with so many changes in fixtures where teams are going into protocol and other teams are coming in to replace other teams in the fixture list, I think we might now be at a point where some teams have played each other 4 times. So if that decision is going to be made, it needs to be made quickly. I think that the Elite League are just going to try and muddle on as best they can at the minute. And if teams go into protocol, they'll try and fill those fixtures with teams that are available. But the problem you've got 4 devolved nations as well in the Elite League who have different rules. I mean, you've got Clan, for example, who have cancelled all their games because they can't have crowds in. So they've got a shed load of games to fit in. Dundee have gone into protocol again. So that just leaves 5 who are playing in front of 200 fans. Cardiff at the minute aren't playing in front of any fans. And that can't continue because where's the money going to come from? So I said it last week, it's a really difficult time. I think the season is teetering on the knife edge at the minute. Okay, nearly been going an hour, but got through them all. So let's have a look at the comments. He says, Jenny Noble, definitely soulless. If we haven't got season tickets, we're not sure we would be paying for every game. Lee Constable, Belfast top line is the best in the league, I think. Isn't Conway classed as a Brit too? Yes, he is British. He is a British player, trained here, born here. He is Pelini. He is Pelini's cousin. So yes, he is related to him. For me, Scott Conway is the best signing made by any team over the close season. His dad, Kevin Conway, was also a top import a few years ago. He was, I think his shirt's retired by the Basingstoke Bison. If Anthony's still on, I'm sure he will confirm that. But anyway, very nearly an hour. Thanks for sticking with it. It's great to have such numbers. Thank you for all your comments. Thank you for all the questions as well. For everyone who sent questions in, it's great. It's great to discuss things like this. I always thought that with what's carried on over the weekend, it was going to be like this. So many thanks for sending the questions in. Many thanks for watching. I really do appreciate you coming on and spending some time and just watching me rabbit on for an hour. So thank you for that. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please share the link so people can watch it after the fact. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. The subscribe button should be just below. But thanks so much for watching. And I will hopefully speak to you again next week. Take care, everyone. Stay safe. And I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.